My name is Rafif Jouejati. I represent the Foundation to Restore Equality and Education in Syria. We were speaking at the UN during the Conference on the Status of Women, and I chose to speak a little bit really about the international community's inaction on Syria. So rather than presenting a list of asks or requests, I actually asked the international community to come back to the Syrian people in the face of that inaction. And I asked them to say what they would be able to do and willing to do to stop the killing. Actually, it's a genocide.
My name is Syrian. I'm a co-founder and the head of legal committee of Syrian Women's Network. Personally, I'm working now with a team on the transitional justice and the accountability, especially that because after 6 years of suffering and facing horrible crimes, especially the crimes that with sexual harassment and other crime, I think that it's like accountability is the right of the people, the Syrian, the women, it's the right of our children in the society.
I am Mariam Jalabi. I am the director of the Syrian National Coalition's Office to the United Nations. I want to tell a story. In 2011, a 17-year-old girl who goes to medical school in Damascus saw the protests on the street. But on her own, she looked up ways of activism and what she could do at school. So she printed out pamphlets. They said democracy, dignity, freedom, equality for all, justice, and stuff like that. And she went up on the top of the medical school in Damascus University and threw them down on the ground. She was detained. She was 17 years old, a medical school girl. She got out, but I'm telling this story because it signifies where women are, where young women are within the Syrian revolution.
There's almost a malevolent participation in the ongoing Syrian bloodshed. You know, when different power brokers and different parties to this conflict began supplying weapons to different so-called rebels, what they were doing was feeding an escalation, a military buildup. They were feeding a situation where Syrians are killing Syrians. They were feeding people who were so desperate for freedom that they were willing to restrict others' freedoms.
At the beginning of the Syrian revolution, though, there was so much more participation at the forefront. What has happened is that after a few months of the peaceful demonstrations, and they were cracked down on so violently by the regime, there was the militarization of the revolution, which is still happening and we're still suffering from until now. Women's roles got marginalized, and they started being on the sidelines. The ones who are taking the forefront in discussing the Syria cause or talking about Syria are the men.
I think it's our duties, it's our job, just as a Syrian activist, just to let the whole pictures clear for everybody that what is happening now in Syria, what's the crime, what's the kind of crime that the Syrian people are facing from the regime, and how horrible situation they are in.
It was about basic principles of freedom and the basic desire to be done with cronyism and dictatorship and tyranny. And those desires were manipulated by the international community, and specifically those who would fund armed groups and encourage more bloodshed.
Talking about women's rights is talking about human rights and what we need to implement right now in Syria, and what we need right now in Syria is justice for all. We need democracy, we need equal rights, we need human rights, and justice